Welcome to Ella Global Community,
a safe space for queer women
and non-binary people of all backgrounds
to inspire, empower, and support one another.
We are really excited for you to join us
in creating our dream.
A global home
for the community.
A place to belong, to be yourself,
and connect with people like you.
A place to spark connections.
Share experiences and stories.
And join meaningful conversations.
Feel free to try everything.
Join our groups and events.
And give us honest, critical feedback.
This pilot is a test version
where we want to try things out
and learn about your wishes.
Your voice matters.
And we cannot do this without you.
No idea is too outlandish.
What is your dream for this community?
Let's build it. Together.
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 Hello and welcome. This is Ella Talks. I am Marina. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm your host and moderator tonight. Before we begin, please take a moment to notice two boxes on the bottom of your screen. One is the chat box where we interact, and the other is the Q&A box. Questions for our guests should go in there, in the second one. We'll get back to those 10 minutes before we end the talk. Tonight, we listen to three amazing women from three different continents. Women who are beautifully leading our Ella teams in Brazil, South Africa, and the Netherlands, and who know their queer communities very well. It is my honor to introduce Laila van Rijswijk from the Netherlands, who is our champion of social justice and a true powerhouse of ideas for change. She has a long-standing experience working with HIVOS, a Dutch humanist organization that seeks new and creative solutions to persistent problems worldwide. Laila is also the person you can rely on. She's always ready to help. She will do whatever it takes to make things happen. And we're still trying to figure out when she sleeps, if she ever does so. But yeah, whilst we get a little worried about that, we also truly love to have you around all the time, Laila. Thanks so much for being with us today. We also have the presence of Ananda Puchta from my beloved home country, Brazil. Ananda is a lawyer. She's also an intersectional activist, a feminist, anti-racist, and passionate about breaking paradigms. As a good Aquarian, she has change and innovation as her north. She also believes in all forms of family and affection, in active listening, and in incessant exchange with others. Ananda was a finalist for the 24th Claudia Award in the public policy category, a fellow of Out and Equal Workplace Advocates. She defends the criminalization of LGBTI phobia in the Supreme Brazilian Court in 2019, and she's the co-founder of Collective Cássia, a member of the Brazilian Network of LGBTQ Women, advisor of Aliades, and a happy country director of Ella Global Community Brazil. And last, but definitely not least, let's welcome Chanique, Lawrence-Geschwindt from South Africa, who has always had a passion for people, inclusion, representation, and change. She is an experienced linguist, representational researcher, and trained African political economist. Being brought up in South Africa, she was confronted with the exclusion of the so-called other from a really young age. This drove her to make our society more fair and equal. She has worked in various NGOs and civil institutions across the fields of education, policy reform, and language. The only way to do better is to keep doing. Wow, thank you, Chanique, Ananda, and Laila. I must say that just this introduction has already filled my heart with inspiration for a long period of time. I'm very excited to listen to what comes next. So shall we start exploring the many facets of queer history worldwide? I also would like to, actually, before we begin, starting making the questions to you, to ask where everybody is from. If you want to write down in the chat box where you're from, because we're talking about queer history everywhere in the world. So it would be nice to know where people are from. Mexico, nice, cool. Yes, I'm gonna make the questions. California, USA, another from Mexico, very nice. Cape Town, nice. Nigeria, cool. California, yeah. We would love to hear from you too. So if you want to share something, make questions, just raise your hands. And I will start with Chanique. Chanique, the first question I would like to make is about some words that are very specific in this environment, this queer environment, and they are acceptance and tolerance. What do they mean to you?
Yeah, well, for me, I think tolerance is something that really sits difficult with me. Because tolerance is always used with the non-binary, queer, LGBTQI community in South Africa. And tolerance just makes me feel like, oh, we're just keeping you there. You know, we don't want you part of it. We just have to be fine with this idea. And I think especially in South Africa, the word tolerance is used too liberally. It's like, no, we're tolerant of others. We are tolerant of the non-binary and queer community. And I'm sick of it. I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be accepted. So for me, the two are mutually exclusive. And I believe that if we are going to make the society, especially in South Africa, more inclusive, acceptance needs to replace tolerance, because only through true acceptance can we actually have an equal society. So tolerance, I'd like to throw tolerance in the bin and just completely overhaul it, because it's just this sprinkling of, oh, we're fair and we're equal, when actually nothing has changed.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chanique. Ananda, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. I totally agree with Chanique on this. I don't like the word tolerance, actually, because it means to me that we are not accepted and we are not respected. People just tolerate our existence. And like Chanique said, I don't want to be tolerated. I want to live my life fully as a fully citizen, a fully person with all the rights that I have. Yeah, we need to change a little bit this perspective so we could have a more inclusive, a really inclusive society. Yeah.
Yeah. Laila, do you think this is different in the Netherlands? Do you feel that is the same, or how's that for you there?
No, unfortunately, it's the same. I have to fully agree with Chanique, because I need to be accepted for who I am, not with who I am for the queer community. The tolerance issue has been a long fight here in the Netherlands, because we were tolerated for such a long period. But we need and we earn the same rights as everybody else. So unfortunately, although the Netherlands are progressive, like they say, the tolerance and acceptance part is not, the line is very thin, I have to say. So I agree on Chanique, just throw it away, the word tolerance, and skip it out of the dictionaries.
But I'd like to make another question regarding that, because in Brazil, we have had recently a discussion on acceptance as well. Because someone said, well, I don't accept. And then people started to say, well, you don't need to accept. You just need to respect. It's about respecting. And do you think that these expressions, they travel over time, this questioning, like when we explore this, how does that, these words, they become expressions of something that is happening in our country? Do you think we can connect tolerance, acceptance, and respect with, has it changed over time? Are we becoming more and more critical? How does that connect to our reality? Do you have any examples as well, Chanique, in South Africa that you could use to explore that, how it has changed over time?
Well, I think as a society, and I think universally, we've come a long way, and we shouldn't neglect to look at that. But I do think in South Africa, especially, there's still such a long way to go. One thing for me that has always stood out is that everyone always speaks about the South African Constitution, how it's so inclusive. It was one of the first things in law that spoke about equal rights for all people, for people part of the LGBTQI community as well. Yet when it comes to the practice, it looks completely different. So I do believe that, yes, it has moved slowly toward this, I'm going to say, idea of acceptance and respect, because it's still not there. In South Africa, the reality is that most people that identify as part of the community are still being persecuted. They are still have to fight for their lives. And then when it comes to the courts, they are not represented. So they speak about gender inequality and gender abuse, but then the LGBTQI, the non-binary and the queer community is never talked about. So if we're truly part of this community and this society, then why aren't the issues being placed at the forefront? And I think that, yes, we are traveling, but we're traveling really, really slowly. And meanwhile, lives are still being lost. People still need to live behind these masks because they cannot embrace themselves. They cannot be themselves because of the cost. And as long as you have to fear being yourself because you don't know the repercussions, then there isn't respect, then there isn't acceptance. And it doesn't matter how many pieces of paper you have, what constitution you have, because the practice and the theory looks completely different. And I think in South Africa, it's always lauded because, oh, South Africa had the first pride on African soil. South Africa is the rainbow nation. South Africa is this. But as someone who has been raised there, it's just media. It's just marketing the country for those who are outside, when the ones that are in the country still have to fight for their existence. Because everyone's like, okay, we had apartheid's over now, so everyone's equal. No, you still have the hierarchy. And yeah, I think it's a systematic approach that needs to be completely dismantled before there could be true acceptance and respect. And I also like that you brought up respect and acceptance, because it's almost like everything's conditional. If you do this, then we can give you that. But why? You know, why is it that if you're in just a normal relationship, then you can just you go get married, you have your child, and that's it. Meanwhile, you have to think about laws, you have to think about adoption costs, surrogacy, IVF, if you identify as part of the LGBTQI community. So that shows that the respect and the acceptance isn't there. It's still being othered.
Wow, very interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting how we spend a lot of energy just to be ourselves, just to live. I would like to move to another a little different subject. I'd like to ask it to Ananda. Ananda, what does the history of pride and LGBTQ plus emancipation look like in Brazil? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So it all started, of course, with the Stonewall Wind and all the stories of the Stonewall Wind coming to Brazil in late 70s, actually. And so you have a gap of 10 years without any organization in talking about LGBTQ people in Brazil. And then we start with a group called Somos in São Paulo in 1979, if I'm not mistaken. And this group was made for all people of the community, but of course, 80% of the group was composed by men, gay men, cisgender men. No trans people were allowed, and 20% of the group was made by queer women, so bisexuals and lesbians. We didn't have the discussion of non-binaries at the time, but then again, misogyny was actively part of it all the time. And those women, they didn't feel really represented by this group. So they created a group that it's really, I love the name, is Group of Action of Lesbian Feminists. And they started out in 1981. So they separated themselves from these Somos groups and acted on their own and started to, you know, create their own magazines, their own groups, their own discussions. And then in if I'm not mistaken, 1983, something happened in a really popular bar in São Paulo called Ferro's Bar, which was a bar where lesbian and bisexual women went to, you know, have fun, drink some beers, had a chat, and then in August 19th of 1983, the owner of this bar just didn't let those women to come in. He didn't let them to spread the words of their own magazine called Xana com Xana at the time. So they were there like just as a community, reading their own magazines produced by themselves. And the owner of the bar said, okay, you cannot be here and you cannot spread these words. This is not a good magazine to be on my bar. I don't want my bar related to you, to your community, so get out. And this on this day, the women just organized themselves that night, especially, and they started a riot, which is now known as the Brazilian Stonewall, or the Ferro's Bar riot. And in this day, until today, we mark the Pride Day of lesbian community. So August 19th, it's really important for us because of this organization and this saying no to oppression that came from our community to this honor. Unfortunately, this bar doesn't exist anymore. It was sold and everything just was shut down. And this movement that I told you about that started in 1981 just finished in the end of the decade. And women in São Paulo especially, they were organizing themselves in book clubs and in other inner circles, but not in a great movement. And then in the 90s, we have another point that's really important, especially for queer women, because in 1996 in Rio de Janeiro, then we have some leaders of LGBTQ community at the time, and they were feeling really overwhelmed and not seen by the whole Brazilian community, as we had at the time homosexual encounters or homosexual parades, not as a pride parade, but march and other gatherings, but called homosexuals and only for men mainly, right? So for us queer women, we didn't have any representativity and any space to be ourselves politically and socially at that time. So in 1996, those women in Rio, they just decided that enough is enough. We are going to have our own seminar, and it's called in Portuguese Senale, which is the Seminar of Lesbians, National Seminar of Lesbians. And in that day, which is the 29th of August, we mark right now that Lesbian Day of Visibility in Brazil. So August is really our month because we have those two important dates that actually put the tone of where lesbians want to be and what we were able to accomplish, even though we were not visible, even though we didn't have any possibility to fight for our rights. And even though we were part of all the constitution process that didn't mention us as a community. And even though we were part of, you know, serious political issues that were amazing in the 90s, our name were not that there anymore. So after this riot, we have another date that's really important in the beginning of the 2000s, where we decided to, you know, actually debating with the international community to have lesbians coming first and on the LGBTQ acronym. So this in Brazil was really, really hard because the queer movement was totally led by men. We didn't have space. And it was really a challenge, but we did it, and all the community accepted, even though even today, we are not that visible. For example, I was part of the criminalization of LGBTQ phobia in the Supreme Court, and everywhere I go, people ask me about the lawyer that defended. They didn't remind that I was there as well. And also my other queer friend, Maria Eduarda, which is a trans woman, and the second one to be there in the Supreme Court as a lawyer, nobody reminds us. So they only remind the gay man that went there and set the tone. And even though we were on backstage doing everything we could, and also in the day defending our community as well. This is something that is really cultural and similar with South Africa. We have really good laws in Brazil, for instance, to say, not laws, but precedents from the Supreme Court, because we are not seen in the legislation, but we have precedents, really good precedents on our community. But either way, we don't have the cultural environment to feel ease, to feel happy, and, you know, feel really light in a society. We are always fighting because we need to fight to be visible. We need to fight to be part of this country as well. And it's really hard, especially right now when we have a lot of trans women going to as city councils and going to politics. We have a first lesbian women elected as well as a city council. People hate us on the internet a lot. So even though we marched a long way to be here, there are still a lot of things to accomplish along the way. We need to stick together and, you know, be more resilient and do our stuff and just move on. Because if you do not do so, we are not gonna go anywhere. So that's it. A little bit.
A little bit. This is valuable because it's so hard to listen to these stories. It's hard to find. It's hard to. We always listen to stories, the same ones, not from specific countries like Brazil. And also, I would love to hear from Chanique and Laila as well. If you would like to share, please. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I think a lot of what Ananda has spoken about now it rings true in South Africa as well. So when you look at the history of Pride in South Africa, it started at the end of apartheid, so it kind of went hand in hand. And Pride was, one of the founding members was Simon Corley, along with a woman called Beverly Dietz, and she was lesbian. And they also started GLOW, which was the gay lesbian organization of the Witwatersrand. But what started happening was that, like Ananda said, gay men were the face of the community in South Africa. And Beverly said, well, no, what about us? And then she started doing her own activism, and she was then invited to come and speak in Beijing at a women's conference. And then Simon told her, you can't go because this isn't important. These issues aren't important. And she told him, no, because you're fighting but your emancipation will be my oppression because I don't have a voice. And she completely moved away from Pride South Africa, even though she was one of the founding members, because her voice, the non-binary voice, the woman's voice, the lesbians weren't listened to. And you see it in South Africa all the time. When people speak about Pride, they say, oh, Cape Town gay Pride. What about everyone else? And those narratives are constantly reinforced because the misogyny is rife. It is gay men are the face of the movement, and so many times the non-binary and the lesbians were silenced. Where is that space for everyone else to exist? Because it's like, okay, we're fighting, and then we win for the men, and then okay, it's fine. The backbone of the movement is trans women, is non-binary people. So how can you then silence those voices? Those are the bodies that had to be laid down. And in South Africa today, still, it is so difficult to find a space that is non-binary or find a space that is mainly lesbian women. It's only, for me, honestly, in university is where you started to see that rise. And I'm a baby. So this is 6 years ago. And that's so late for it to start happening. And still we have to look for ourselves in pockets. So I believe, we need to change the face of the community and actually give due to the bodies that were there and part of the fight, and put women and non-binary bodies and as the face of the movement, because that's where we have been.
Excellent, Chanique. Thank you so much. Laila, mic is
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah, that's completely different. And I'm shocked to hear the stories about Brazil and South Africa, because, of course, there's a backlog here in the Netherlands with the lesbian women. But we have had Pride since 1970, and there was only one incident in 1982 where there was some youth who were repressing the Pride. But then our government found out that it's really important to give us that space. And they even appointed a minister for LGBT emancipation. So that's really great. We have Pride all over the country. It is in June, and we even have a Canal Pride in Amsterdam, our capital city. First, it was only one day, and it's in the beginning it was all kinds of boats, and we celebrate. And of course, it was first only for the white cis gay men, but now we have a whole week of Amsterdam Pride. We have Pride in other cities, and it's normal. It's people coming together. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if you're non-binary, trans, or lesbian. Everybody gets together. So I don't recognize what's happening in South Africa and Brazil. The only thing that we now have to fight for is the Dutch Black queer representation. But that's the only thing, and we're working hard for it. We even have ministers and trans women in the parliament. So we're way ahead if I compare it with Brazil and South Africa. But we're not quite there, but it's not that bad if I compare it to your countries.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot for us to do in the global South, we know. With all those challenges and obstacles and everything, would you be able to define like the main issue that we have right now in Brazil, in South Africa, in the Netherlands? You have mentioned, Laila, the Black queer community, and but I would like to explore a little more these main challenges. Everything is very important, but maybe some things might be more urgent, in our opinion, of course. But I would like to hear a little bit about that. You can start, Ananda, if you want, please.
Sure. So I think right now for our community here in Brazil, the hardest thing for us to keep fighting is to really see, like really honestly see the intersectionality that we have within our community. So we are a huge country. It's like enormous, almost like a continent. We have different cultures everywhere, and we have this racial democracy myth that goes around Brazil, that Black people, they don't stick together as often because many of people, they don't really think of themselves as Black, and this colorism situation it's really hard for us, so we can let people understand their role and their and the importance of them in the society. So this intersectionality with race and ethnicity, and then keeping together our indigenous folks as well, and original people that lives in the Quilombos, for example, and also trans people and people who live in outskirts, and people who are really marginalized from society. See all those complexities together. I think that's the main concern of our movement now, how to represent and keep everybody together as a really equal LGBTQ movement and queer women, non-binary people marching side by side with all those complexities on the way, So as far as we are talking about the law, for example, we are really far. We have marriage equality. We have the possibility to adopt. We have the possibility to prosecute somebody if you get violated. You have the possibility to donate blood, which we didn't have many years ago. But we still need, for example, for non-binary people, the recognition of their identity. We don't have this in Brazilian law. We don't have this cultural transversal look of how we see intersectionality within our community. And I think this is the main concern right now, because you see the way we live, we can have like a lesbian middle-class woman in Curitiba, where I'm located, that lives really well, and yes, she's not concerned about anything. But at the same time, you have a trans woman in Rio, in the outskirts, that it's being murdered by police and by law enforcement. So all those realities are really different, and I think people need to have the conscience to stick together right now. And this is the main concern for me, because even though we have really good laws, if we don't have the culture to make them happen, we don't have anything. We have just like words written in a paper. And I think, yes, this for me would be the main goal right now. Try to insert intersectionality in everything we do, everywhere we go, so we don't leave anyone behind.
Totally urgent. Thanks, Ananda. Chanique, what would be this urgent issue for you?
Well, I think the most urgent thing for me would be stopping the violence against the community. But for that to happen, you need visibility. And I think that's something that is still very saddening in the South African reality, is that often people don't care because they don't know. The stories it's not on the major news. It's not in parliament. And that's actually something that in following Brazil that I really admire, because yes, there's still a long way to go, but at least it's at the forefront. In South Africa, people are still scared to go home. I had friends that identified a certain way when they were at university, but when they went home, they got back in their suits or back in their dresses because that's what their family expects from them. And they just went back because they were so scared. It's still a situation where many people in South Africa get disowned. Oh, I don't want a son that's this way. I don't want a daughter that's this way. You can't change your name. Don't shave your hair. And I mean, for me, I come from a very, sorry, Eliana is busy there. I come from a very conservative religious family. So I came home and I had shaved my hair on the sides. And the first question I got was, oh, so are you a lesbian now? Why do you look so much like a tomboy? Just all of those things. It's like you just make a change. And while you are trying to find yourself or come to terms, you are already being told that it's wrong. And therefore, I believe that once we come to the fore and admit the violence that's being committed against the community, that the visibility will be there, and then we can make those words on a paper mean something. But we need to admit it first, and we need to say there is a problem. LGBTQI community in South Africa is being persecuted. That needs to be put at the forefront, and only then will we be able to deal with all the myriad of other issues. But we need visibility and we need representation.
Excellent. Thanks, Chanique. Laila, would you like to comment?
Yes, of course, I'd love to, because I was really impressed by the story of Ananda, because we don't have those laws. And that's a sad thing. We do have the representation and there is social acceptance. About 92% of the Dutch population accepts the queer community. They only have a problem with kissing women if they see that on the street. But we do have some pressing matters, which I really think that is to be ashamed of. We don't have a law for anti-discriminatory policy, and also not against violence. So yes, lately people get beaten up. It doesn't happen a lot, but if it does happen, there's no punishment. Even if people want to change their gender in their passport, it's a big thing here in the Netherlands because they have to go to court. And it takes ages before they get the other gender they ask for. There's also no anti-hate crimes laws, so that's really ridiculous. An example for that was on our television, there was a first non-binary person shown, and the hate crimes, the comments on the social media, it was awful. We have the right for free speech. We can say everything we want here in the Netherlands, but they really damage people, and people don't get punished. Even the comments are not deleted from the social media, and I think it's really harming people. So, and the other thing, which is really horrible here, and I could not believe when I heard that gay conversion therapy is still legal in the Netherlands. So our politics needs to get, kicked actually to get things done. So in one hand, we were very progressive, but now it's like we're, dropping down, and it's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, they always need to be kicked to move forward. Yeah, it's a lot of energy we spend. And we are in the Pride Month now, and this is when we see a lot of rainbow wash everywhere. And at the same time that we want and we need support, we want and need real support, right? So my question is to all of you, how can we approach this issue? So instead of being used, we can start benefiting from this interest of the community, of the society in our community. Do you want to start, Ananda?
Okay, yeah, I was going, okay, nobody said anything, I'm gonna do that. So rainbow wash. This is a really tricky topic because, companies, they are profiting from our community. And if we look in a market perspective, in Brazil, LGBTQ community in general, we move, I think, $130 billion a year, all just the queer community itself, of course, plus gay men. But then we don't have the same support when we need companies to sign on anti-bills, for example, or to move forward alongside our government policies. They don't do that. Like one example we had this year, and it made me really happy because it was something that has never happened before, was a municipal bill in São Paulo that was trying to be passed, that mainly they wanted to banish queer community from propaganda. So you couldn't use anything related to queer community in any propaganda. And then companies, especially the publicity side of it, they stood forward. They came forward and they say like, okay, we cannot go back. We already moved so much forward. We already have a really good path ahead of us. Of course, we are not in a perfect position, but we are going there. And because of companies, this bill wasn't passed. And it was really, really nice to see for the first time on a municipal level, something like that happened. And of course, in 2018, when we had the elections that took Bolsonaro as our president, we tried to get companies together to send a letter to all the president elections candidates, actually, to say to them, okay, be supportive of our community. We want you to be supported with us. And for our companies, queer community matters. So it should matter to you as well, because it's good for the market. So just a simple argument. And even though we had, I think, 14 candidates at that time, only 3 signed up. And even though we have more than 200 companies, big companies in Brazil, only 34 came up. So it was a really small shot, but it was the first time as well. For a first time, I was really happy to be part of that. But then again, we need more companies to move forward with us, so we can rely on them not only to give us really good jobs and well-paid salaries and dignity on this level, but also to be alongside us in this fight with public policies, to be the ones that go to the government and say, okay, we need more bills to this community. I need to protect my staff. And it's really nice to see that even though we have an awful government right now, companies stood up to their employees, most of them. The ones that had this debate on equality in workplace. So it's a really small measure, but it's better than anything. We have a really long way to go, of course, but I think one good strategy is to show those companies that we are part of their economic level and their economic society. We buy their products. We produce their products. We are part of that, of this living being that, innovates. And as many diversity you have, as many innovation you have in your company as well. Once they understand that, pink wash and rainbow wash is going to be just a baby time story, I think. But for us to be in this situation, it will be we need to move forward on this topic and this debate with the companies, and not the largest ones, because the multinationals, they already have their own policies. They already know what they have to do, because sometimes it comes top down for us. But then the middle companies, the small companies, the companies that are family made, we need to talk to those people and show them that we are here to grow money with them if they need. And we also need salaries. We also need to be in the workforce. We also need to pay our taxes. And they are meant for that. We can go together, and our society can thrive and rise together on this.
Very interesting, Ananda. Chanique, Laila, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I think when I think about rainbow washing, something that just irks me is that when you have mainstream media and somebody is represented as being part of the queer community, the LGBT non-binary community, then they don't even use someone from the community. So it's like you're trying to bring awareness, yet we're not good enough to play ourselves. So that makes you ask the question, why are you doing this? And that is something that's so frustrating, because then they put forward, and I know especially in South Africa, because it's so influenced by Western media. It's like, look, you have a lesbian character, look, you have a transgender character, but they don't identify as such. So why can't we be ourselves? And I think once the media takes that approach that, you know what, that's who you are, because you're not good enough to be yourself in your daily life, then you're not even good enough to play yourself. So they hire someone that is straight, and they're like, okay, you're going to be gay, you're going to be lesbian, because that makes it more palatable. That already gives the wrong impression. So then you say, oh, look, we're doing this for pride. No, you're doing that so that you can monetize from it. Because at the end of the day, money talks, but they don't even want you part of that community. And something that I found in South Africa, because I'm a researcher, is that we have started to change the way academia looks. Because the truth is, education is a key that can change. And a lot of companies, a lot of civil society, they go back to academia. So once we start to change that, and you see that people are publishing under their preferred names, their preferred gender, they use queer terminology within academia, that's a way to break down the system, because these are the people that go into policy, into activism, they are the CEOs of tomorrow. And unfortunately, in South Africa, it's a situation where you can't always approach the big companies, or even some of the companies. It's still a very conservative, religious set in their way. So we need to really start afresh. And with that, I think it's actually good, because in South Africa, we don't celebrate. Pride Month isn't big. So when it comes to June, then nobody is marketing Pride Month, because nobody knows what it is. So in many ways, we have such a clean slate that if we just get our community behind us and we get the visibility and the representation, that we could build something that is representative and inclusive of it. But I think, yeah, if we can get media to have us represent ourselves, then that would already be a big step in the right direction.
Good. Thank you, Chanique. We're approaching to the end. And Laila, before you answer that question, I would also like to include another one to you. So I would like to know your opinion about rainbow washing. And also, what do you think about people who say that, oh, we don't need pride anymore in the Netherlands? Countries, everything is solved. I would like to know what you think about that too.
Well, pinkwashing, it happens everywhere. Unfortunately, it happens here as well with big company like Booking and Spotify and Uber. But yeah, we tend to speak up, and somebody sends a letter or goes to the company and we talk about it. We have our voice, we have the free democracy, and we stand up. And if they don't listen, well, then we find out ourselves. And like last year, we had the possibility to ask for a new broadcast, and so we created two, and one is for feminists and the other one for the Black queer people. So if they don't listen to us, there are so many initiatives here in the Netherlands, so we make our own. It's that easy. It sounds easy, but it is also that easy. There's a new group of millennials, like I like to call them. They have strong voices here. They're the second wave feminists, like they call themselves. And they have such strong voices. We have feminine TV makers, filmmakers. So they teach us what we should do to make everyone inclusive in the Netherlands. Do we still need pride? Yes, we do, because we were very progressive, starting with the first queer marriage in 2001. And we did a great job, but I think we become lazy here in the Netherlands. So if you look at the ILGA Rainbow Index, there was a time where we were on the 3rd place, but we've dropped to place 12. So we become lazy. And I think the bottleneck here is our politicians. I don't want to talk about politics here, but they just don't meet each other halfway. So it needs to come from us, from our society. And it works, but it's slowly, and we have to get back to that level that we did have once 20 years ago already. And if we keep continuing this way, I'm sure that South Africa will even do a better job than here. Yes, we need the pride for now and always.
I totally agree. Thank you so much. We have 2 questions from Luz. Luz, I think, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm sorry if I'm not. If you would like to make the question yourself, please feel free to open your mic and ask it. And then we're going to end our conversation with your question. Actually, 2 questions, because they're very, very interesting, and they also bring us with, it's interesting, it will be interesting to hear from you the ideas on how to solve, or maybe to start tackling these issues that they've raised. So let me just see here if Luz wants to speak. Yes, you have to raise your hand if you want to speak. Otherwise, I can read the question. No problem. I'll start. Oh, there.
Hey, hi. Hi.
Hey. Hello.
Okay, so, well,
thank you.
First of all, you guys are, no, thank you. First of all, you guys are awesome. I am so, my mind is blown from all of you, because I'm 52 years old, and I came out in my 30s, and if you can believe this, there was nowhere that I had any idea how to do this, how to be a lesbian, how to go for support, how to talk to someone. And so therefore, all of this is brand new to me. This forum is brand new to me. So I ask, if you see my name, you see it everywhere. So I'm all over the place. So yes, I'm very excited. And it's like if I'm a kid in the candy store right now with your forum. So I love your forum. I really do. So my question is, how can we, or can we do, trans women, men are being attacked and are being killed here in the USA because of who they are. One of my best friends, who I met in San Francisco when I had a meltdown when I first came out, and I ran away. And he is this gorgeous individual who lives in Boston, and he was attacked, and very badly, and he survived, thank God. But he is disabled for the rest of his life, and he was attacked because of who he is. And you know, and I've walked vigils of, you know, even before I came out, of trans women that were murdered. And you know, every single time I think of it, my heart breaks. And how, you know, how is it possible that people don't understand that everywhere a human being wants to be themselves, how is it not possible that it's okay? Okay, that's my first one. The second one is, here in California, several years ago, that's why I put my age, by the way. But several years ago, there was this strike, and it was in downtown LA. And I know you guys are all over the world, so it's possibly that you don't know this. But here in California, there are what you would call workers that are like maids, office workers that go in the middle of the night to clean your offices, clean your homes. And they are paid very minuscule wages. And that's what they survive for their children, their homes. And they all decided through the union, and I'm an activist, by the way, through and through, that they weren't gonna take it anymore. And they all decided, we're gonna stop working for one day, no work. They went to the streets, and no office workers, no mates, no nothing. And it was like, the day stood still, and everyone was like, how is this possible? And the entire economy went crazy that day because nobody was able to do anything. And so therefore, it just represented how much these people that were Latin American, okay, they were Mexicans, Guatemalan. I'm from Guatemala. I was born in Guatemala, but I was raised here in the United States. You know, Central Americans. I mean, the whole entire community was looking at this, the news everywhere. And it showed that these people are being, you know, are so important to the economy, are so important to everyone, that all of a sudden they were like, yes, 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 we will give you better wages, we'll give you better benefits. But it took so long and so much abuse for them to finally said, you know what, we're done. Now, I raised my children in a matter of being an activist, in a way of being, you know, respectful, being open to whoever they wanted to be. And I'm one of those people that if you are, because my children, all three of them, I have 2 girls and 1 boy. They came to me and they said, Mom, I like both girls and boys. And I was like, okay, cool. I got no problem with that. You know, my daughter, who I love to death, my middle child, I adore this girl. She came to move in with me in San Francisco. I make it a little emotional, not gonna be sure. And so she came to me, she said, Mom, I have to talk to you. And I go, sure. She was 14 years old. I don't think I don't feel good. I feel like I need to be a boy. And I said, sure, come on, let's do some research. I used to work for a company called Good Vibrations, okay? Good Vibrations is a female at the back then, right? It was a female-owned sex company, and it's for female pleasure, you know, sex positive. I love the company. And me and my daughter did all the research and everything. And she said, Mom, I'm going to go ahead and she put the ACE bandage around her breast, and I helped her. And she said, Mom, I am thinking maybe I need to do something with my, genitals. I said, okay, let's go and look for something. We researched everything. And she did this for like maybe 2-3 months. And she said, Mom, I love you so much for supporting me. Because when we tried to do it with her other parent, he didn't accept her. Her grandmother didn't accept her. But I said, look, you have one parent that supports you 110%. And whatever you want to do, I'm here for you. And she and I are best friends. She is with the love of her life, which is a male. And we have a lovely granddaughter. And I'm like, if my granddaughter wants to be whoever she wants to be an astronaut right now. But anyway, my point is that all 3 of my kids are activists. All 3 of my kids support the LGBT community. All 3 of my kids are so gung-ho that their kids are like that. And so when you guys bring out this forum and this talk, it's like, it brings this into me again, because I have an illness that I cannot work anymore. And so, you guys, Uh, you guys rev up my blood in a way that I want to do so much that there are no words to thank you. There are no words that go beyond anything. So when you guys opened up this forum, it's like I have a place to say I'm safe. I have a place to say that more women need this. More women need this visibility because there are no places. Me and my wife were talking about this. There are no more clubs for women. It's like the male. I know the time is what it is with this forum. I understand that, but it's so important to say this. The male dominated organizations, and I'm talking about the gay organizations, you know, the gay boys, the gay clubs, the gay this, the gay that. I'm so tired of that. Instead of seeing women, I don't see that. And, you know, and it's so sad because it's like, where do women like me, you know, that I just want to hang out, I just want to make friends, I just want to talk about anything, where do they go? You know, and that's the bigger question. It's like I hear all of you and I'm like, I just want to hug you virtually, not physically, but you know, and say, you know, I get it. I get that. I get the struggles, you know, I get the struggles because I was a 30-some-year-old person looking for that. You know, I understand how angry people can get. I understand how sad people can get. I understand how depression can get because you feel alone. You don't have someone to talk to. You know, I had a daughter who was suicidal because she was so sad because someone told her that she looked like a lesbian when she wasn't, she didn't understand what she was, you know, and so therefore it's like, it's okay to be who you are, you know, so there you go. There's my spiel.
Thank you so much, Luz. I got goosebumps here, and I'm very, yeah. It's very very good to hear, and yeah, we're here. I think this is very powerful to see each other, and to connect, to have this space where we can feel safe, where we can share, and I really like your question. I think it's a very good way for us to finish this talk. We're already past a little bit on time. So I'm gonna just maybe synthesize a little bit and ask whoever wants to answer, feel free. If you want to send a message or to answer, feel free to say whatever you want, okay? Laila, Chanique, Ananda. But the question, I think it's what Luz meant was like, what can we do as a community who that is facing, right? The same, sometimes the struggles are the same everywhere. And if we unite, if we get together, if we organize ourselves, we have this platform, we have this space. So what can we do as a community that is everywhere in the world and that has a space to organize itself and connect and do something? Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Luz, for sharing that. I think from my side, I would just say we just need to keep going and keep pushing, because what happens is that often the novelty of oppression wears off. So it is fine for a while and then it's front and center, but then the only people that will continue the fight is us. And I think with forums like this and the platform, we are there to support each other and uplift each other's voices. So we just need to keep each other strong and take time when we need to take time and then continue, because we have a very long way to go. But also just on a personal note, I just want to tell you, thanks so much for being that one person for your daughter. Because I had an aunt, Titi, and as I said, I come from a really religious, conservative family, and throughout everything, whatever it was, she was the 150%. And that didn't matter at times where the others disappointed me. You know, you have a safe space. And I think you're already doing such a great job that your granddaughter will immediately just come towards you, and that in of itself is keeping going.
I want to add a little bit on Chanique's. First, thank you, Luz, for everything. I got really emotional with your statement. It was really powerful. Thank you. And yeah, I can understand the reality. I've been a few days just in San Francisco, and I could see the, it's really divided. It's a divided society. You have everything for gay men, and you have like so little tiny spaces for women there, and it's everywhere in the world, in Brazil also. And as you talked about trans people as well, Brazil is the first country that murders more trans people, and we strive every time to move forward from these statistics. And we can only do so because we have each other. So when you ask about this coming together, this collective, this possibility to move forward, it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have each other. So, and that's it's beautiful about this forum, this platform, and everything that our organization does. It makes us a possibility to keep together and keep going, and relying on each other, and having hope that tomorrow is going to be better. And even though we are not happy and we are suffering today, tomorrow is going to be better because we are moving forward alongside each other. And yes, I'm speechless when it comes to this, because it took me a long time as an activist to find a safe space like that, and it's really empowered. It has really empowered me to be here, but it also empowers me to listen to the stories, because it just shows me that we are on the right side of the story, of history, actually. So yeah, we are making history and making better. So yeah, thank you for everything. Thank you for the invitation, and for everything that you all do together with me as well.
Yeah, thank you, Luz, for sharing. It was really a touching and moving story. But I think your children will be very proud to have you as a mom. I think we all want that kind of support. And I have to second Ananda's words that we're a long way there. But if we unite and keep listening to each other and come together, then we will fight. The fight will continuously go on, because there will be other people who will be discriminated and unfortunately murdered for the person they are. And I think it was such a moving story, Luz. I really want to thank you for sharing it with us. And this platform is only the beginning. Like Ananda said, this is a community where we feel safe, and we want to offer this to you, but it's only the beginning. So let's keep on talking and listening to each other.
Great. Thank you so much, Ananda, Chanique, Laila, for sharing your thoughts today. Very happy to have you here. Thank you, Luz, for your contribution as well, for sharing your story. It was very touching. And that's it for today. Please keep an eye on the platform. We have other events coming up, lots of things happening all the time. So we'll see each other soon, and have a great evening, everyone.